people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to the elders, past and present. Today we do church on land that was stolen and never ceded. Hartwell is a fully affirming community and fully committed to being a safe space for all people who are connected to this community, regardless of gender, sexuality, race, family background, economic situation, and regardless of how old you are, where you come from, what abilities you have, what languages you speak, what religion, spiritual path, tradition, and ethical conviction. Everyone is welcome here, and we want everybody to feel safe here. It's going to be a short service today, and it's no escaping today. It's a somber day, and you can see that Rosemary has put some black cloth around to remind us of the darkness that represents Good Friday. So I'm not going to sneak Easter Sunday into this talk, as tempting as that is, sometimes to want to resolve the tension of Good Friday. So much will remain unresolved and difficult today. I'm going to show a short video in a second, and I'll do a short reflection, another video, we'll do communion together, and then I'll do a benediction. But at that point, if you want to leave before the service ends, we'll end with shalom at the end. But if you want to leave at that point without communicating with everybody, that would be a time to do that, because I know some people appreciate doing that. So, Bo, if you can pull up the clip of Walter Brueggemann reflecting on Good Friday for us.
Being out here and seeing these tombstones, first thing that came to my mind is that place in Matthew where Jesus says to the religious leaders of his society that they're all like mausoleums, they're all white sepulchers. So what he does is to take the tombstone as a metaphor for people that have shut down reality and have no energy and have no imagination. So I suppose a cemetery is a good place to talk about the imagination of death and the imagination of life. And if you draw that to our moment in society about the economy having collapsed and about Barack Obama's audacious hope, you could entertain the thought that we are at a life and death moment in our society, and all kinds of people and all kinds of institutions are having to decide whether they're going to continue the patterns of death to which our society has subscribed, or whether we're going to have the energy and the imagination to break out of those patterns and come alive. So I think the Bible is this field of imagination in which they're constantly watching people rise up to newness. And one of the narrative images for that is this little baby that was born to Abraham and Sarah, and the text says, and they were as good as dead, which I suppose means Abraham couldn't have an erection and she wasn't ovulating anymore. And they were as good as dead, and a baby came and life started over. And I think we live in a society where people are now deciding, many people are deciding, we're not going to settle for the old patterns of death and despair and denial. But we're going to dance and sing, and we're going to practice neighborliness. So I think the Bible often imagines that we are at an either-or moment And I think this is really one of them for churches and church people. And it's nice to be talking about this in the season of Lent, um, because Lent is getting all set to die and then to be raised. And if you're in denial, you can't get ready to die and you can't be raised. Both the Old Testament and the New Testament are clear that you have to go into the abyss. And in the Christian tradition, Good Friday is the abyss. Jürgen Moltmann said on Good Friday that the Son is Father forsaken and the Father is Son forsaken, and everybody is forsaken. And you can tell that we don't want to go there because by and large, very few people go to church on Good Friday. A lot of people go to church on Easter Sunday. But you can't have the Sunday without the Friday. And I think the circumstance now, the economic circumstance of our society, the failure of our social institutions, Friday is the way to name what's happening to us. We are really in a shutdown of the way it used to be. And one of the things that's clear in the New Testament when you read the Good Friday narrative is that neither Herod nor Pilate had a clue about what to do. And I think we live in a time when the old rulers of this age haven't a clue what to do about anything, which means it's time to die and be raised. That's what I think.
Walter Brueggemann reminds us that we cannot have Easter Sunday without Good Friday. He also notes that many people do not come to the Good Friday service. Alas, it is true. The reflection by Brueggemann was taken at the time of the global financial crisis, which many of us will remember. But the kinds of challenges we all faced then have not gone away and are still relevant to our current world with all the troubles that unfold around us. We can think of what's happening in the US, Gaza, Ukraine, growing inequality, climate change, domestic violence, drug abuse, lack of willingness to confront our own racism in Australia. It feels like many of those in power do not know what to do. As Brueggemann also noted this with Herod and Pilate, both who did not know what to do with Jesus and the unfolding situation. And so they resorted to the one thing they did know how to do, which was to use violence to make the problem go away. The problem of Jesus and this new world and way of being he was talking about. Just make it go away. Good Friday arrives, and Jesus' friends have deserted him. The crowds have deserted him. He's forsaken. As Brueggemann notes as well, on the cross, Jesus' experience is one of being God forsaken. My God, why have you forsaken me? To feel forsaken even by God. The dreams of the kingdom crushed, and the violence Jesus chose not to embrace to bring about that kingdom is now visited on him with all the brutality that a brutal and corrupt empire can muster, supported and aided by the religious elites. On the cross, Jesus died. We all die. Jesus didn't want to die, yet Jesus must have realized that by confronting the powers, he would likely face death. In the garden, he asks and wonders and prays and says, if you could take this cup away from me. There was a willingness in Jesus, though, to pursue God's dream for a new world, regardless of the cost. Nelson Mandela, president of South Africa, was jailed for 27 years, and he would echo this willingness to die for a cause. At his Rivonia trial in the 60s, he said this, I think it was 66. During my lifetime, I've dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I fought against white domination, and I fought against black domination. I've cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. So Jesus dies a political revolutionary, but not only that, he's also someone who modeled an intimacy and depth of relationship with the divine. The Jesus story is both deeply personal and it is also both deeply political. Perhaps what is unfolding around the world with all its depth of despair and, yes, at the moment, death on a grand scale, in some ways, for many of us, might mirror the despair that we feel inside. Not just despair at our feelings of powerlessness to prevent injustice, but our own sense of disappointment and despair we all encounter at some point in our lives. As I said at the beginning, I'm not going to try and release any of that tension for us today. You will need to come back on Sunday. But you can understand why many people don't come to a Good Friday service. It's actually a really brave thing to do. Good Friday doesn't simply reflect the reality of death, but also the disappointment and despair of the dreams Jesus was carrying for the world to die too. The very dreams and hopes themselves experience their own kind of death. His dreams and his hopes die. All of us here perhaps have experienced the death of many of our own dreams and the own hopes that we had for our lives and for others in the same way that Jesus did. And that is a deeply painful thing. Good Friday is about accepting the reality of death, but Good Friday is also about acknowledging the disappointment and despair that we all carry from time to time. And we try to bury this, much of this, but we can't bury something unless it's truly dead. So much of the suffering we carry finds its way to the surface of our lives and doesn't really allow us to live the kinds of lives that we want to. Buddhist philosophy and religion is often good at this. Their first noble truth is that we accept our suffering. We bring it to light. Acceptance and commitment therapy, which builds on Buddhist teachings, which is so effective in depression and anxiety, says, don't attempt to fix things or pretend it's not there, but rather accept it and bring it to light. Today, are we willing to accept our disappointment and despair? If you're up for it, if you can just close your eyes for a second, if you don't have to. I want to ask a series of questions just to bring us into this kind of question in a kind of a bodily and mental and emotional way. And then we're going to go straight into the final clip together. I want to ask a series of questions and just allow 10 or 15 seconds to pass. And I appreciate that some of these questions might be a little bit difficult. Are you carrying crushed dreams and hopes today? What are the current disappointments, perhaps in yourself and for others, that you carry today? What disappointment do you carry today? Is there a sense of despair that you might carry today? Despair at the inability to change your current circumstance or the circumstances in the world. Despair at the inability to change your current circumstance and the circumstance in the world today. And lastly, what are the things that you might want to let die today? What are the things that you might want to let die today?
Clouds collide to come together, turning soft white into a dingy black. To walk up that hill to the place of the skull, following soldiers and mockers, and one who carried a cross for one unable to carry his own. He was left to our own devices, to do with him as we wished, to tear him apart. Clothes of a king, scraps of humanity scattered to the wind, bits of flesh off his back. On this dark and dreary day, painted in a bruised purple, surely God had forsaken him, left him here, cast out of the womb, from the warm garden of birth and taken from the mother's breast and given to this humanity? But he no longer belonged to us. We no longer belong to him. To a mother, he said, "This is your son." And to a son, he said, "This is your mother." And at this point, they each went their own way. In this place, I stood up. The shadow of these figures pressed against the sky, like paper men cut out by scissors. And I saw myself as them. In all the moments of rejection, the stones thrown out from the quarry, polished in the pain and the suffering. And my own cross was too heavy to carry. The weight of my regret and loss pressed heavy upon my chest. The anxiety of wanting to make something more of myself was almost too much to bear. All of my work was waste. All of my dreams nailed upon that tree. But it was too much for this crucified king, who was made a victim for all of our crimes, a voice for suffering, We emptied our guilt upon him. He became a burden for our shame because we could not bear to take the blame. Because we had rejected God's gift of goodness. Looking up, Jesus cried out to God. To hear only deafening silence, bashed and bloodied, but bones not broken. He spoke his final words. It is finished. Completed. It was all he could do for us. He poured out his life for people who made a mockery of him. And he hung his head. Entering into the tomb, where the light ends and the nothingness begins. No longer in the land of the living, but another entrance to be sealed shut. East of Eden, dissolving life.
There's communion around the table. If you want to pour yourself some and grab some bread. Maybe we can do so in silence. That's all right. The bread reminds us of Jesus' body broken on the cross, the crushed dreams, the despair, the disappointment. And the wine reminds us of Jesus' blood. I want to close with the benediction, which is more of a prayer. I've decided we're actually not going to end with shalom. I think we just need to leave the space where it is after this prayer. So again, if you feel like you want to leave during this prayer, this would be the moment to do that, or slightly afterwards. God of our hearts, we come before you today with the weight of crushed dreams and unfulfilled hopes. We carry disappointments in ourselves, in others, and in the world. We bring the burden of despair from moments when it feels like change is too far out of reach. We feel the heaviness of circumstances we can't seem to change, both within us and around us. In this sacred space, we open our hearts, not to be fixed, but to be held. We lay down the parts of ourselves that feel broken, fragmented, and unseen. We invite the courage to face the losses and the grief that lives within us. God of renewal, we ask for the grace to release what no longer serves us, the disappointments we cling to, the relationships that drain us, the dreams that have turned to dust. Give us strength to let go and the wisdom to know what to hold on to. Amen. See you all on Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah,